Chilly here with Sirius Dallas Moon, and we are now with the moon really approaching Lilith. And what I was seeing is how the cultures where the father or the parent of the family, I don't know, but where the father would pay more emphasis on, let's say, if it's a daughter, on who is the daughter dating than on whether she is in will and consent. These cultures are not only exiled, but when they emigrate, only the women basically come out. It's like the Swedish women that did not come from Sweden, but the husbands were not, or the family and the fathers were not really integrating or assimilating into society. Now, some of that is racism, but to begin with, they would have been, if the woman would go with men, let's say from another tribe, they would not pay attention whether that man treats her well. No, they would be okay with raping the child, with slaughtering the child, with trafficking the child. Where in fact biodiversity-wise, if people stay too close genetically, they begin to have weaker immune system. Yes, for me, I don't think I resonate so much with this person because this is not reading where I can say, oh, from me, I see. But I was receiving that like it was a scene that was playing out. And I'm like, obviously, I'm not the daughter. I don't date anyone, and so on. So it's not relevant to me. It's relevant to, I think, to the society around. Okay? And in societies where people do ritual abuse, they try to keep it a secret, so they fear, let's say if a person goes, or they fear if another person comes from another place, because then all of their secrets are out. And the secret is that they rape the infants. And so when somebody speaks, let's say, against ritual abuse, they try to make it as if, oh, just they've been with a person from another tribe, or they've been this, they've been that. They try to make it legal to rape them. And if they can make it legal to rape them by anything in society, that society is now susceptible to genocide. Now is the time that the world is changing. People want that real estate. How many lineages were wiped out the earth because they were okay with raping the daughters? There is no respect to a father that is okay with the rape of anyone, let alone his daughter. It's not just respect, the entire lineage could be wiped out of the planet. When the parents blame it on the children for the actions of the parents. Because why would, let's say, from these tribes, why would a woman not be dating, for example, and you will come to the sadness stories, right? Because of something that happened in childhood. Where was the family? Oh, if it wasn't happening from the family, it means from the community. And some rituals from the community, it means the spiritual traditions and religions that the family is surrounded by. Now, if the family doesn't surround these religions, they will defend their child. Oh, but what if they do? What if they want to be on that Epstein Island? And where is that coming from? The father that was raped as an infant. So they try to justify trafficking the infants, that, and whichever chronological age that infant tries to heal, they try to justify raping them. Of course people will be not how should I say that? Of course people would be running away from such tribes from such lineages, from such families, from such religions. And of course, these people that, let's say, if a boy or a girl escaped to such society, they would look for societies as not like that. And so these children will expose every single society. And then the people would ask, what is global? Andrew Tate, being in prison, came out of prison and said, what? Some of the people, they blamed so many men for sexual harassment or for trafficking. Well, it's a network. The Epstein list is already out. Who is his crowd? Only the traffickers would agree with him. Now, he been in prison. He doesn't know what the word been. And if he does, it's been updated by the network. They try to sustain itself and take him down with them because he could have done Mark Dutroux. And when Mark Dutroux said it's a network, and Melissa's father, the one of the daughters that was trafficked, says, I don't want to hear about the network. He sounds like the Muslim said that in Somalia that said, we cover Islam when they tried to abolish child weddings. So this type of, and I'm trying to say, yes, of course, the Senate is with Sedna Uranus. Sedna Uranus. This is what I'm like, what father? One father with his own family, one father with his own family in Netherlands, like what? I'm 41, gonna be 42, grew up with my mom, what father? I don't date anyone. Like, why would somebody be saying I'll be dating this or that because I don't date anyone? Definitely not sexually because everybody know what I'm talking about, right? So I was like, why is this energy really arriving? And I said, I know why. Because Uranus is with Sedna, and it's a societal issue, and the ascendant was going through there. So the ascendant we experience, let's say, in a horary question, we experience the ascendant as the person who asks the question. And when the ascendant is with an outer planet, it's like, oh, okay, now I see. So my wound, let's say that I was not dating anyone because the society, Jewish society, Christian society, in the Bible is no sex that is not rape. But the Bible is inspired by indigenous practices. So I was not idealizing the indigenous, nor was I idealizing either Judaism or Christianity. Definitely not Satanism, because Satanism, a lot of people say, oh, Satanism helped them out of ritual abuse or helped them out of trafficking. Basically, what helped them out was being compliant with. So I said, okay, everybody picks their compliant. I said, okay, global human extinction by A-bombs, immediate at once and no suffering, that I'm compliant with. It appeases their need to do evil. So this was definitely a Uranus and a story. Mercury here in the 12th house in Taurus, Venus ingress to degree 12. And the moon is applying to oppose from Antares. As protection for the spirituality of the father that follows spiritual practice and culture and occultism that does not honor the feminine, the sovereign woman. And of course, no respect for his lineage. In Hebrew they say Zar Acha, which basically means the seed of the person. Of course, because not because he masturbates, but if he rapes and if he pays some money to people to be trafficked, or if he is okay with any woman being trafficked with his tribe or other tribes, then his Zar'o, basically his seed, is like Jesus said about the fig tree that will not give fruit, but in a different story, because Lilith here kills those infants. And the way she kills those infants might not be immediate, it might be to a world war. And they say, okay, we will double the children, double, triple, quadruple the children. All of them born by rape, all of them will kill their father so that the teeth of the children will not need to rot because of the fathers ate unripe fruit. My God, I knew that Moon Lilith is going to be powerful. Of course, Mars still 18 degree, squaring from the 18 degree, and it's going to be squaring from the 19 degree. Later today, we have a couple of hours before Mars ingresses to the 19 degrees, and usually when I do this broadcasting, it's like I receive the story, so I receive the channeling, and sometimes it comes as a story. And that was the story. It's like a father that's telling to his daughter, you will be standing in the street if you will be with those people. And I was like, why is this arriving? Because I was taking a morning walk, and then I see a tree by the side of the street, and then somebody says, if you'll be with those, you'll be here. And I'm like, what is this? What is this dumbfuckery? Where is this coming from even? And I was looking, I said, I'll give the channeling, and then I'll look at the chart. And the chart, of course, is ascendant with Senna and Uranus. So they want to make traffic in cities. These are the beliefs that enable them. By 2030, these traffic in cities are basically that comes. And I will show you, as I was speaking today with the episode I haven't yet uploaded, I was waking up today, taking a morning paper, and in the news, and again I'm broadcasting from Israel, people begin to talk about the schools. They say that they define genocide, and that they compare, that they said that the Holocaust, the concentration camps were refugee camps, and so on and so forth. And they said children that grow in these schools, they will grow to work against Israel. Now, here is the thing. If the children not aware that it's happening in their monarchies, in their regimes, in their families, in their tribes, they will seek out Israel. Then let's say you wipe Israel. Always I love to do this thought experiment. Let's say you wipe Israel out the planet. How's the world? Because it's not that I disagree that ritual abuse within Israel should be abolished. In fact, there are many cities that are turning to trafficking cities because fathers are thinking it's okay to rape the daughters and follow the person, that the spiritual person of whichever religion, that does the same to infants. And blame the women when there's Holocaust and they die by the masses. Whether they serve in army or not. We had bombing in Arad, where I escaped from, and there were big families, everybody encouraged to have children, not enough, not suffice space, nobody even gets to go to the shelter on time, then boom, and of course it's mass losses. It was not even that they don't want to go to the shelter and so on, so no, there's not enough time. It's such big family to prepare I don't know how many infants within so and so minutes to go to the shelter, impossible. 3 floors down, by the second floor is boom. And if it booms on the building and the building is a bit old, even if it is new, that's it. And then the answer is like, okay, let's make more children. Well, to make child is to have sex. But to have sex needs to be will and consent. It's not an order. And then you have families that try to breed children, breed children, breed children, so to protect the family or to protect the lineage, but nothing is protected when it's born by rape. And this is Lilith is kind of like in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is where we are benevolent, where we want to speak the truth, where we want to, make sure everybody knows the truth. This is also why I think it's also why the middle decan of Sagittarius, and I have it in the 10th house, is where, let's say, a person or the native could be experiencing, and also the parent, or one of the parents, could be experiencing smear campaigns. And I always say one has to shush during the smear campaign and let the people play themselves out. But they usually are pushing the person to speak, and then they have to speak the truth. They have to speak the truth. They say, okay, this thing that you think about, I have it for women. It is Jupiter is husband, so it's like, why doesn't she marry? Why doesn't she marry? What does if I bought a marriage ring? I'm wearing a marriage ring to silence the why doesn't she marry? And then people probably begin rumors, but I'm not with these rumors because I'm like, and then eventually a person is forced to speak because just like it affects their housing, affects their jobs, affects their everything, affects their health. And then what happens? The entire truth comes out. And all the smear campaigns go 9/11. Now here's the thing, sometimes the smear campaigns, sometimes it's simply, because I have Uranus there, so it's societal. A society that doesn't know what is this new thing. No, I can think about when my parents were married. And my father, was from Netherlands, and then my biological father from Israel, a city that would later become more religious, by the way, Bnei Brak. And then it's one of the orthodoxies, okay? It's kind of like Bnei Brak, it's kind of like second only to Mea Shearim, which is, but it was not Orthodox at all. It was secular. And so my parents were secular, and my biological father was somewhat traditional, but very secular. People are like, he was served in the IDF. Yeah, he served in the IDF. And my father served in NATO. And so when I think about, my mother going with the 2 old English sheepdogs in the summer, so of course she would wear a strapless shirt because it's hot. And her husband, Dutch, and the car has this weird plate because they brought it from Europe or something. Or the father had a driving license, my mother still hadn't. And so he could only drive with a funny plate. Everybody thought he was from the UN. Society doesn't know. No, this is where society makes up stories about these people. Not only they dare to marry, they also dare to divorce. And then of course they would have a daughter. Because, a son in Israel would need to go through circumcision. And of course that daughter would be like a son. So sometimes it's not about all people making smear campaigns, because it's just that society doesn't know, because something challenges the foundations of society that everyone swipes under the rug. Until there was like a religious revolution and all these talks about second coming of Christ and so on and so forth, and wanting to make the Jewish equivalent of Sharia, and so yeah, I was never misleading anybody about these things. But this is where I was not reading, I read the entire Bible because it was one of the books that I was reading. But I don't remember every page in the entire Bible. Then I look at Genesis and I'm like, what the fuck is this personality called? There's no will and consent there. Now, my moon nakshatra is of clergy and merchants. So, you understand that's spiritual. And indeed, from very young age, I was taking time to reform the religion. And then I became like completely secular, swiped it under the rug. Okay, but how I began to become a secular, I was fasting in Yom Kippur, and then I was reading the Siddur, I think it was, and I was reading Maimonides about the doubt that strengthens the faith. And it gave me, from that upbringing, the strength to learn the sciences. And this is why, and indeed, scholarly thought, they learned the sciences. Every philosopher that I studied was a priest and a doctor. It's kind of like if the child is kind of weird, you send them to a church to be a priest or priestess. Even when I studied aromatherapy, so we studied with the holistic practitioners. This was also with the book of Louise Hay. And Louise Hay was a Christian priestess. But she was with a Jupiterian and is still not fully integrating, yes, the Venusian. But she definitely said the people's perception of God should be such that supports love. But if we think God is, and there are even imams that say, if we think God is not loving, then so it will be. If we think God is loving, so it will be. But here's the thing, what people think about God is very much changing to what experience they had and what upbringing they had. This is why the role of Louise Hay was to improve a people's relation with God, that it will be a healthy relation, that will think of God as benevolent, and then they would heal the ailments that were of the thought. But the Venusian is also suffice. People also need to be in society that does not rape. Jupiter focuses on the choice of the individual, and it's very powerful. But a person is not an isle. We can do with the choice of an individual, we also have to integrate Venus, and this is where the society has to cease its ritual abuse practices. So this is also where we talk about the middle decan of Sagittarius. Where we talk about the middle decan of Sagittarius, and it's the life energy transmutation. The healing there is the Kundalini energy. What's Kundalini energy is sexual energy flowing, and sexual energy is flowing. It doesn't mean the person is sex crazy. The other way around. It means that there is no obstruction, so the person doesn't have to oscillate. And this is a spiritual, medical, philosophical, but very practical teaching. Lilith sitting on this is coming to clear out all the obstructions that stem from where the woman was subjugated, or where there was expectation for the woman to be subjugated. And in fact, for Lilith, it's not about, Lilith is kind of like she can't live in a world where woman is subjugated. And we all have Lilith in our charts. This is why I said Lilith is your wife. Lilith is your partner. If you are a straight person or a lesbian person, Lilith is your partner. There's also the Lilith within your husband. Why? Because Lilith is equal to the man, both intimately and outside of bed. It also means that we very likely have a compromised version of the scriptures. Either that or the scriptures to begin with were compromised and they did not hold truth. In the scriptures, people make it a pflicht, a must to marry and to have children within marriage unless you're a priest. And with priests, you know what they do to children, so it's a problem. It's also why I tend to this topic like the Epstein-Petering, because what my place in society would probably be at the class of merchants and priestesses. And this is also why I walk in the street and I receive this story, like the father said, if you'll be with these people, and I'm like, who are these people? I don't know. But you'll be with these people, you'll be standing in the street, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Well, because he raped the infant from this tribe, so he is afraid that the woman will have a conversation with the man. Or is he not able to protect the woman? He's not able to protect his daughter? Is he not a man enough to make sure that a man who would try to harm a woman, whether for this or for other, would be... And then I'm like, why am I receiving that? I'm not dating anybody. I don't know even who are these people. And then I saw the ascendant. And I'm like, oh, it's actually about a woman that doesn't date and people tell her these things. Or that people say that she was with someone that she wasn't even. And the reason she doesn't date has to do because, I will tell you something now, it's very racist, but I'm going to ground it in a Lilith. Because the Lilith equivalent is not racist at all. Bialik was, I think, Ashkenazi Jew author. He said about people who were coming from North Africa, he said, for some reason they call them Easterns. We are Easterns to them, but whatever. And maybe the complexes of the Jews that came from Eastern Europe. And so I was working with my mother and in Germany once, and then two guys thought my mother was from the East. So they begin to say, yeah, they come to take our jobs and so on and so forth. And then my mother turns around and she answers in nice German, but she's from Israel. So, but Bialik, he said, he hated the Jews from North Africa because they reminded him of the Arabs. Now, he had no leeway to say that because I don't know if he would have been in Epstein list or not. Yeah. And okay, I said I'm going to ground it in a little teaching. So, the people that they would not date, let's say, with a person from another tribe because it reminds them of the wrongdoings in their own tribes when it comes to intimacy, to infants, and so on. And yeah, what can I say? This is that was the way it. A person takes a morning walk, and somebody said, if you will be with these people and shows on a tree, you will stand here, meaning the woman will be a prostitute. Meaning he's going to traffic his own daughter. And I'm like, it was not to me, somebody was speaking to his daughter. And I'm like, okay, this is a story that is happening in the sky right now that I should be addressing. Yeah, that is how, for example, when I work with essential oils, if I see, run into a person, they have, let's say, they're supposed to have surgery with the hand. Why? Inflammation. And I say, okay, but it's also important to create and not to work so hard. And then immediately I think, okay, geranium is these pains and anti-inflammatory oils. I don't just think that. And I don't just say that. I go and buy these oils and I meditate with them. Because there's a reason I was seeing this person. And then maybe I need to paint. Maybe I need to rest more. And I said, but I'm resting. Of course, I'm not resting because of these things I talked about in previous episode. Onruhig. So this story is explaining what is happening or what is the culture that enables turning cities to trafficking cities, or what they call profitable cities. Profitable city is a trafficking city. It's a basically dead camp. And then this paper, I said I must keep this paper because I think in time in history this would be an artifact that, that the country will hide. Now somehow I knew since 2007, I was talking with a person who was German, and I said, well, these Germans, they went through certain crises. Israelis didn't. And if the story is the story about ritual abuse, rape, and trafficking, it's not a national story. And here we begin with the Mars square in Jupiter. It's not a national story. It's not a religious story. And I can tell you, I attended to the crisis where people were sick of tending to the crisis, or to the Israeli-Palestine. And I said, okay, let's have panels of security, people from security to say, what are the actual military risks? What are the actual security risks? And then we'll have party for like a peace party, like the hippies, because people are sick of tending to this topic. And then they turned the party into Goodbye Bibi party. Peace now became V15, and no panel of security whatever. Now, I'm very sure that I'm not the only person that had experienced that just around 2 years before the Me Too. And I said, I'm not doing a Goodbye Bibi party. First of all, it only empowers him. Secondly, that is like what they did with Rabin. And we're supposed to be a democratic country. And then the Me Too came, and they see, well, there's no reason for men to be and women to be violent to one another. Why ever would they make this division and so on? If I see the person that harmed me had traumas exactly in the chakras where I had traumas, the first chakra, the second chakra, and then I was working on the solar chakra. Now the first chakra is what? Is basically the ritual abuse that cuts a person from any sense of the all that isness, and then they're very triggered by anything, anything spiritual. Because they have seen everything fall apart continuously. And the second chakra is, of course, relational chakra. So what is that? Going from relaxed arousal or avoidance to, from misplaced arousal to relaxed arousal. And going from a trauma bond or cult-like relations or personality cults, when we talk about the solar, to secure attachment and a sense of self. I'm still tending to the toenail fungi related to exactly these meridians, these chakras, and these gnosis. So I said, the issue is to curate the problem. But of course, I need to be safe and free. doesn't work with. Sex work is not work, because the people that said sex work is work, they are required to do sex work for any work. And what was the Me Too? My job should not include abuse. And then the diplomats are like, but our job is like, this is our job. And the bankers are like, but this is our job. And and I was like, okay, rebel then. Oh, but it is occultistic rape, but this is how we get our... No, it's not how we get it, it's how you were looted, and then you try to get it from another, so you feel dependent on the system. Oh, we can't speak. Good morning, the women of the Me Too spoke. They were also in risk of assassination. Where is the one for all for one? I was like, no, but their entire society is built on degrading the feminine. I was like, aha, that's why you guys get persecuted and assassinated and genocided. It's a global society. So these local beliefs of the tribal disinclusion, where a father is okay to slaughter his child, okay to have his child raped. This is mafia, it's not family. Now, you would tell me, Shirley, of course, good morning, but these people, what they do for a living is... And I said, we run into that as culture. We don't understand the culture. I said, they escape from there. Why do they do the same things here as when they escape? This is what they do for a living. But at the core, things is about, for those rituals that have to do with rape. Because what would happen? Think what would happen to a child that her father disowned her. I can tell you what has happened. Elijah is in the United States. Bash in the USSR! And a father that disowned his daughters because she was raped in the military academia, sozusagen. Why sozusagen? Because there's nothing that defends the national security by raping people, which the USSR indeed so. They dropped the drug lord and the USSR fell. She spoke nothing against the country. The regime changed. Her father thought his daughter was a whore. No, the biggest whore is the father that sent his daughter to be raped and disowned his daughter and not the country, so his country fell apart. Rightfully so! But, of course, wouldn't it be better for everyone if their father to begin with would not disown his daughter? And if the military academia will to begin with not to rape the people that come to be there as intelligence, as sort of training. Also the men. What is Zumbur? Zumbur is when the men rape the men in the combat units. And then we have a honorad missing, communication cut off and so on and so forth, because the people that tortured him there remind him of the people that tortured him in his unit. Entire war with Iran, they tried to do like 7th October to bring back all the people and so on and so forth. And of course, if an astrologer, and I look at this and I say, well, of course, Jupiter was when the Me Too was, around Spica. And his Mars, but around the Fomeround, around Neptune. And then what, probably intelligence, they tried to rape women and men to seduce, I don't know, to find information. It's not how they find information, not for this guy. This guy was tracking, but he managed, he maneuvered without anything. If he is alive, we will need to abolish all ritual abuse, definitely from the intelligence, from religion, from anything Jupiter, but to find this person. Then United States dropped the navigator and got him. But Ranarad was supposed, we were supposed to know what is with Ranarad. That was supposed to be the, what they call victory picture. Everywhere they would have this victory picture for Israel. But a society where the fathers would do such thing to the daughters, and then they build the profit off, because what is fathers, they're invested in trafficking. Supposedly for the children, that's what the children are supposed to inherit through the trust, if they continue the family business. Now a lot of children don't want to continue this business. For good reason. They were the children that grew up to the fathers and parents that do these things. Yep.